Welcome to Commander Central. We're coming at you live from the Dungeon of Love in Max's basement. I checked iTunes earlier. We are the only Magic podcast that records entirely in the nude, so we got that going for us. How's everyone doing today?
Can't complain.
Same here.
All right, well, let's get started. I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.
First of all, I want to mention this is the warmest I've been in the last 48 hours recording this podcast because I don't have a furnace in my house. It literally just got fixed as I left. The guy just finished fixing it at 10 to 5, so I left the house.
What was he doing all day?
He had to get a part. First of all, they had to get a part shipped in.
Okay.
And then they needed a second part in addition to the first one he replaced.
This sounds real expensive.
Yeah, it was it was like 2 tropical islands worth of repairs.
Oh.
Ouch.
And it's a furnace, so what do? There's some things, I'm not a dumb person. I can fix some things.
Yep.
But a furnace, I don't know. The guy's like, well, you're out of unicorn blood. What do you do? All right, well, I guess we better replace the unicorn blood. I don't know. Nothing I can do. All right, let's order that. We can't get it at Walmart, so I guess we'll top off the unicorn blood. So that's what he did today. So anyway, I finally now have heat, but my house was 57 degrees or 56 degrees or something all day long.
At least it happened now and not in January.
Exactly, right. I mean, I survived. I didn't have to worry about pipes freezing or anything, but
30 is better than negative 30.
yes,
Yep.
absolutely, because it will get that cold.
Worst comes to worst, we'll bring you one of those steel 55-gallon drums, and we'll just have a fire in the middle of the
right,
house.
right.
You have a nice vaulted ceiling, so
Open a
that'll work well.
skylight. That'll be fun. That'll be a fun phone call to my insurance agent.
Right.
We had a hobo barrel going in the middle of the living room just to stay warm. So how about games we played this week? Anything interesting from anybody?
We all played this week.
For the first time in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
That's true.
I had no luck last night. Every game I played,
You
I
even
got
had bad luck
crapped
with
on.
one of my decks you played. And
Yeah.
at one point you were like, I'm just land screwed. I got nothing going on.
I got land screwed and wrecky.
It's because you took a day off or a week off. That's what it is.
I took 2 weeks off.
2 weeks. Yeah, see, you're inexperienced now.
I'm
Well,
a noob again.
I actually, but I noticed I was really rusty.
Yeah.
It makes a difference when you don't play. For
I noticed
3
you were
weeks.
off your game, too, when we
Yeah,
played.
I was super sloppy and just missing triggers and all kinds of dumb stuff. But I had some good games. One I specifically want to go into, we had talked about putting Monarch cards in all our decks. I think we all did. And I put Thorn of the Black Rose in my Glissa deck and then forgot about it because I did this before we left on our
Halloween and
Halloween
concert
and,
adventures.
Yeah, so
Yep.
I did it weeks ago and forgot about it. So I just dug the deck out and started playing it, and it was in my opening hand. Just worked out that it was there. So I drop it. It's a 4-drop, and I think I got out on turn 3 because at turn 2, I put a Signet in play. And turn 3, I think I played Thorn of the Black Rose. And I lost the Monarch for 1 turn over the course of the game. And it wasn't a short game. It probably went, I don't know, close to 20 turns. So I drew probably 20 cards off the Monarch. I mean, 18, well, not 20, but if it went 20 turns, I drew probably 15 cards off it.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Did they forget about it?
No, but number one, that deck is kind of really built to have the Monarch because my creatures all have Death Touch. So it's really, if you're
True.
swinging at me, there's a good chance you're going to lose something. And after I played Thorn of the Black Rose, I played, what is the flying bird with Death Touch that was in Amonkhet? The buzzard that's a 1-drop if something dies.
Bone something.
Yeah, I bone something. Yeah, right. Something.
It's the Delver of Secrets in
Yes.
black, pretty
Yep.
much.
So I played that the following turns. Then I had a flying Death Touch blocker. So to swing at me, you're probably going to lose something. It was tough to kind of get through, even if you had evasion. So I just kept it. And then I wound up, then I played Phyrexian Arena on turn 5 or something, and Gitrog Monster on turn 6. So I was basically starting each turn for a bunch of turns with draw, and then draw my Phyrexian Arena card, and sacrifice my land to get Gitrog Monster, and draw a 3rd card, and then ending my turn with drawing off Monarch too.
Wow.
That's insane.
And then
People say it black and green can't draw
right.
cards.
Well, but then other people had threats going on too, so it wasn't just me. So then there's other things that had to get taken out before people dealt with me. So that worked out great. And then somebody played a Army of the Damned and put 13 zombie tokens in play. And I had it. I'm like, oh well, I had drawn a Decree of Pain because I was drawing so many cards.
Oh no!
So then I drew an additional 26 cards off Decree of Pain, and then it was just, I had ramped enough that I think I wound up winning the game with a Torment of Hailfire for 24 or something.
So official judge ruling on Decree of Pain. I asked Lee Henderson this weekend, who's a level 2 judge from Bloomington, Minnesota, that when all the creatures are destroyed, the commander does not count towards your drawing of the cards unless it goes in the graveyard.
No, really, so I thought there was a difference between a death trigger and a graveyard trigger.
Nope, I asked him straight up, and he gave me that ruling. Because I know it's something that we always get into whenever it happens, but straight from a level 2 judge, that's what he said happens.
Cool.
So read any destroy as placed in the graveyard.
Yep.
Okay. That's good to know.
Probably got eroded 5 years ago, and
Yeah, probably.
And he's a good one to ask, Max, if you're ever in for questions like that, because he does play a lot of Commander.
yes, he does. I've played him in Commander quite a few times.
Yep.
All right, good to know. So that was, anyway, my one thing worth talking about. Was there anything from you guys? Any particular games?
I played Brago this weekend, Max's Brago deck. We're in a 5-player game, playing against Gitrog, Venser, some partners, and I can't think of her name. She's a 3 or 4 drop, mono green, 3 mana, tap, discard 2 cards, turns all your lands into 3/3s, or target players' lands into 3/3s.
It's an older card too.
Yep, I can't think of her name.
Yeah.
So we're playing against that. I ended up stopping Gitrog, who's going off fast, with a Meek Stone. So they all started nuking each other out. I had 25 cards left in library. Didn't find a single thing worth threat-wise. Ended up playing Reality Acid with Strionic Resonator, wrathing the 2 guys that were left. Their whole board lands everything, and just like, you guys want to scoop? And they're like, yeah, we'll scoop. And I'm like, thank God, because I can't do anything else.
Oh, no.
It was the bluff.
Yep.
Nice. The LSV don't have the game-winning card in my
Sideboard.
sideboard,
Yep.
but just hope no one asks. Yeah,
Uh,
that's nice.
But I suppose when you blow up everyone's lands, they just kind of force scoop. I mean, I felt bad doing it, but we had played this game for like 3 hours.
Oh,
so,
then it's worth it.
yeah.
That's years ago. I was playing paintball with some friends, and I ran out of paintballs, and it was on a relatively small course. And I was out. I ran out of paintballs. I'm like, well, whatever. So I just ran up to one of my friends with a gun. I'm like, surrender, surrender. And he's like, all right. So that works. It works in paintball even. It certainly works in Magic sometimes.
That's great.
I did post a picture last night from one game. I played my Sigarda deck that I opened land into Wild Growth, and then turn 2 played a land and then played Fertile Ground, I think. Turn 3 played Sarah Sanctum, and I was able to. Well, and I actually think turn 2 I also played Carpet of Flowers enchantment. So turn 3 I was able to play Sigarda with Ethereal Armor on her, and at that point I was at, I think, 3 enchantments out. So turn 4 came back around to me, and I played Ancestral Mask on her. on turn 4.
Could you get a better nut draw?
I actually, the game, I think I won by turn 6 or 7.
You cheated. You
I
had to have cheated.
I one-shot everybody at that point. That's not a fast deck. Like, literally,
No.
there's no
I've never seen it go off like
there's
that
no
before.
artifact ramp. Like, all my ramp is enchantment ramp, and those are really the 2 cheap ones. But I had them in my opening hand, and I had Sarah Sanctum, and yeah,
Wow.
I just blew everybody up. It was fast. So I put a picture on social media anyway. That was, if anyone's wondering what the picture of Sigarda turn 3 suited up already, that's what that was.
So speaking of social media, you can find us at search us up on Twitter at CMDR Central, Facebook search Commander Central, or find us online at commandercentral.com.
And of course, we are on Patreon by searching CMDR Central.
Anything on social media this week, Chris?
I got a few things. I'll delve into it later as we're going through the show.
Okay. I
If
got
that's
one.
okay.
Yeah, for sure. I got one I'll do then as well. Any news, Max?
We do have some news. The new Unset is being spoiled as we're recording this.
Blah.
Exactly. We're not going to go into it for Chris's reaction right there. But when you guys hear this episode will be after the launch of Iconic Masters. So we want to hear what you guys are looking forward to opening, or what did you open, and what cards are you guys, specifically Dana and Chris, looking forward to trying to get because of price drops or more availability.
I'm not going to buy a box. I have bought a box of Master Sets in the past. I'm not going to do that. I will mention that in a little bit more detail later on in the show as advice for things not to do for new players. And buying a box is one of those things. I'm not going to buy anything. I do want a foil mana drain for a deck. And right now, the Judge foil was sitting, as of today, I checked, it was at $179, which is a lot of money. But I've got money set aside specifically for one I've been waiting to get. store credit at Card Kingdom, just waiting to buy one. So I would assume that's going to drop. I hope another $30 or $40. And I'll buy either the Judge Foil or the Iconic Masters, whichever one is cheaper. I really don't care.
Yeah.
But I want a Mana Drain and I'm going to get a foil. So that's my big thing. I also like the new art on Yugen. And I have a Yugen in my, that's the green Kamigawa dragon.
Yep.
I think it's Yugen. It's pronounced, it's a J, but I think it's pronounced Yugen. And I have one in my Reki deck. And the new art I think looks really great in that dragon. So I'm probably going to get one of those as well, but that should be relatively cheap.
There's really nothing I want in there. Be honest with you. The Horizon Canopies for Modern, that's about it.
Yeah, I
thought about Horizon Canopy for my Sigarda deck, and if it gets cheap enough, maybe if it's down if it gets to 25, but I don't know if it'll go that low. That seems really cheap.
yeah.
I hope it does. It might, the new.
It could.
'cause it's not going to have the old Future Sight border.
Because that Future Sight border looks so good on that
does.
card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with Chris. There's not much that I'm looking forward to or chasing. I mean, a Mana Drain would be nice, but I can wait a little longer for prices to lower
Foil
just a bit
channel?
more. No.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, that's banned.
Yep.
In like every good format.
Grove of the Burn Willows, I was like, maybe I have a deck I would run that in. I'm not running it right now because it's expensive enough, but if that drops to
Yep.
$20, maybe I would pick one up for a deck or something.
I did see that Consecrated Sphinx is dropping in price right now
Yeah.
because of the reprint.
Well, that's got reprinted. There was a invocation of it.
Was there?
Yeah.
Yep.
In the first Almond Cat.
Correct.
Actual Almond Cat. So it's been reprinted now a couple times.
This would be its third printing.
Yeah.
Is
Or
it
fourth.
third? I want to say it's fourth.
Well, we can look that up. And
I'm
verify.
I'm
looking
probably
right now.
way wrong, to be honest with you.
For some reason, I want to say there's a fourth as well, but I can't think what the fourth one would be.
I was thinking Eternal Masters, but I don't see why they do Eternal Master then Iconic.
It's 3.
It is three.
Is it? Okay.
Mirrodin, Besiege, the Invocation, and now Iconic Master.
All right, there we go.
I knew it used to be a really spendy card, and I'm watching it drop, just going, ha 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 ha.
It's under 20 for the original.
Yep.
And the reprint for this weekend is at like 10.
So that'll probably drop even more. If it's a pre-order
Oh.
at 10, I would bet it drops a little more than that. Maybe not.
We're
but-
going to see them everywhere now.
Oh, I know. It's a great card.
I'm curious
I
how much
get
is
it.
actually
but
going to get pulled out of the set because it's 250 some rares.
it's a deep set for sure.
And it's a mythic.
Yeah, and half of the rares in that set aren't really that good in my opinion.
And it's going to be competing with the unset. Not
Yep.
that I care really about it, but like some people are into that. So,
Well, the
I know.
unset doesn't come out for a couple more weeks.
but there is enough overlap that
Right.
it might dig into it.
Yeah,
Like-
Iconic comes out this weekend.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know on Thursday at the LGS after they close, we're going to crack a couple boxes open and crack packs so we have singles available for when the release starts.
Yeah, I usually do at least one draft, but I'm not sure I'm going to this time just because I don't know if I have time.
I'd rather draft the unset, to be honest with you, just to have a fun time.
To
type
say
of
you've
deal.
done it.
Yeah.
The unset, at least those basic lands look good. I know you don't love them, Chris, but they're unique at least.
I love the art. I hate the border on it.
Okay.
I think they missed an opportunity to make it just the perfect full art ever.
And the new tokens look really good. There was art release of those today. Those look really sharp. And I
Yeah,
think
the
they're full art,
Full
aren't they?
art tokens, yep.
Okay, well, all you new players, you can stock up on full art tokens and full art lands at from the onset. Just don't try to run the commander. That was actually a discussion a little bit on EDH Rec today.
Was it?
We were talking about the guy that runs the site, Don Miner, was like, do I need to add the onset cards? And because people were asking him, are you going to add these as possible commanders and cards? And my thought was, man, then that's just going to, how many times are you going to have somebody show up at your gaming store and be like, but it was on EDH Rec, man, I'm going to run it. Like, and I don't think he's going to.
I
But
thought official Wizards type of thing is that any unset, none of it is legal in any type of format.
it should not be, but it's commander, so people do. There's enough people running that Grimlock card and stuff. So there'll be people that are trying to run it.
Kitchen table
And
rules.
particularly because the legends in the set, the unlegends, are all semi-playable. They all kind of make sense.
Yeah.
I guess if we were able to, I think she's a legend, but the new she's I don't remember her name, but she's the Magic Pro or something
Yeah,
like
the
that.
spike.
The 4-mana was it 1/1, I think?
It's a black and 3 Phyrexian mana,
Yeah.
and you can bring a card from a banned card from outside the game into play.
Yeah, any constructed
Banned
format that's
card.
banned, and then play it.
Smuggler's Copter.
I'm gonna go channel and just be like, "What's up?"
I was gonna say Scheherazade, but I don't. Is Scheherazade banned? I don't know if it is.
I'll pull out that Caracas and play it. Just
boom. There
what's
we go.
up?
There you go.
Oh, that'd be awful. So we sent out word both on Twitter and on social media and just to people around that we knew for questions that new players have and things new players want to know about playing Commander, playing EDH. So we're just going to answer those questions to the best of our abilities and hopefully give some ideas to new players about where to get started.
Yep.
So I kind of broke these up into two groups. We had questions that were kind of about play, how to play as a new player, and questions about decks and how to basically get started playing as a new player. So I think we'll start with the deck questions. And one we had was, should you build your first deck or buy a precon? So what's everyone's thoughts?
Chris, you first.
I'm kind of torn on this one because I think both are reasonable yeses. You could build from scratch or buy your precon. My personal preference would be to buy a precon, but for a good friend of mine who is just getting into Commander, he's having me build him a deck.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that.
Which
That's a
is
good idea.
a different route. So if you have an experienced player who does it for you, then cool, you can build it from scratch. You just say, this is how I want to play, and then work from there.
I like that.
Yep.
I hadn't thought of that.
I think it goes one of two ways. I think if you are a new player to Magic in general, and you just want to get into EDH because that's what your friends play, or you see it at the card shop, then buy a precon. Because it's a good starting point, you can take your time to modify it. But if you're a player that is used to doing draft or playing standard and just want something to change, you kind of have the concept of building a deck down, or you should.
Yeah.
So then you kind of you already understand the game and how it works, where I think taking a stab at building it yourself isn't a bad idea.
And maybe you have some legends sitting at home in a box from when you were drafting cons or when you were drafting whatever. And you're like, oh, I always liked Surrak the Hunt Caller. I'm going to make a Surrak deck. Whereas if you're a brand new player, you've no clue aside from maybe the stuff you've seen your friends play.
Yep.
So I actually, those are both good ideas. I like the idea of having an experienced friend help you build a deck if you want to build one. And I would suggest buying a precon, particularly if you're new to Magic at all.
Yep.
Because even if you don't like the deck, there's a command tower in there. There's a soul ring. There's going to be cards that are useful. So it's not a wasted $30, $35 or whatever it is. You'll utilize that money. And the decks are all pretty decent, especially the last few years.
Right.
What was the best year Commander products for new players? So like every year is kind of a different theme or whatever. I was asking what we think the best year was of Commander for new players.
I have a feeling we're going to have differing comments on this one.
I do too.
Mine is, I do believe it's 2014, the monocolored Commanders.
The Planeswalker decks.
I'm not saying you have to play it with the Planeswalker, but as a monocolor, it is super easy for a new player. You never have to worry about getting color screwed. You don't have to worry about having 3 double-colored cards in your hands. You got to try and count your mana. It's just straight up all the same color. You just go ham that way.
I like that reasoning. What I found when we played those decks is they didn't function well unless you ran the Planeswalker. Like, you can't slot Kimba in instead of Nahiri. It just didn't feel like it functioned the same way as having Nahiri in your command zone.
I agree with that.
Doretti played way better than Felton at the top of that deck.
Right.
Yep.
And the blue one, Teferi, is better than whatever else was in that deck. I don't even remember.
Yeah, man. Who was the other one? I don't remember either. Was that? I don't remember.
I think there was a
Right.
Brine
Yeah.
Elemental in there. That's all I can think of
Right.
that was in the deck.
My answer is the 2013 decks. So those were the Shards decks. So Aloro,
Oh,
Marath.
Jaleva, all that.
granted,
True name Nemesis.
true name. Yep.
Yeah.
Granted, they're harder to find because that's 4 years ago now.
Yeah.
But I didn't look at it as strictly as the face card. So your Aloro, your Marath, your Prosh. I looked at it as you get a lot of good older commanders that worked well in the deck without having to change a lot of it. So you could play Shroom instead of Aloro, and you still had enough of a deck in there to make Shroom work. You could play Shattergang Brothers instead of Prosh. It still worked with no functionality difference. You could play Mayal of the Anima instead of Marath.
Yep.
Or even Kahiji. But it gave you a lot of those older reprints that are, some of them are tier 1 commanders
Yeah.
Yeah.
in the deck.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I kind of went. And granted, I'm not a big fan of 3 colors, but
I am. I love
right.
them.
I just looked at it as more of a, what else did you get in the deck? Because, cool, I want to build a Shroom deck. Yeah, it's $1, but I also have now an Aloro and a True Name Nemesis and everything like
Yep.
that.
Well, my answer is a combination of those two.
Oh,
I picked 2015. That's the enemy color decks. For the kind of the same reason Chris said. Number one, it's simple. It's not as simple as monocolor, but it is relatively simple. You only have 2 colors to worry about. Your mana base is easier to build and fix. You're not worrying about 3 colors to get there. But unlike the monocolor decks, you have strengths and weaknesses to help one another out, aside from the Boros deck maybe, but like mono white is such a weak
I don't even
color
remember
to
what
play
the
in.
Boros deck was.
It was Kalemny and Anya. And it was not a good deck.
The giant deck.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that one was not good. But the rest of the decks were all good, and by going with a color pair, you compensate for weaknesses you get in monocolor. However, I agree with what Max said too. At that point, they figured it out. And they did. The year before, by 2014, they had gotten good at putting multiple commanders in a deck and having the deck work for both of them.
Yep.
So they did the same thing, and by 2015, clearly they had maybe even gotten better at it. But just by virtue of being 2 colors, it was simpler.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for a new player, that was a good balance between the decks being easy to play, but also playing really, really well.
Not to mention that set of decks all had extremely playable cards in them for
You
other
bet.
decks.
And the commanders are good. Like that Daxos is a unique playing enchantments in black-white.
To
Nothing
make
else really
dudes.
does that.
Yep.
And Karlov, now there's been a bunch of kind of creatures similar to Karlov since then. Like Ayali plays kind of similar to Karlov, and the Zavanda is a new one.
Yep.
Pretty much every
Ixalan.
black-white commander since then has been kind of similar to Karlov. But he was already the first one that kind of did that life gain thing that matters in black-white. You had Mizzix in the red-blue, which cared about enchantments.
No, spells.
Or excuse me, spells. Arjun, who is kind of a unique playstyle. I haven't seen many Arjun decks, but like it's a very specific build path that nothing else does.
Right.
You had Marin and Mazeric that both kind of did different things, but that were still on color. Mazeric cared about sacrificing stuff. Marin was
Graveyard.
Graveyard reanimation. Azuri is super strong.
Super strong. And you can buy a $1 card and put it in there and go infinite.
Yeah, for sure. And Casado, and I've never seen a Casado deck played, but it's Snake Tribal, and it gives a good ability to snakes. That's unique. So
I think there was a few snakes in there too.
and there were a
Yes.
few, yeah. So that was a cool deck too. So I like 2015, but I think they've definitely gotten good at making these decks.
Yes, they have.
If not, maybe almost too good,
Ugh.
because the commanders are so strong now that they make those. It's tough to use a non. You're definitely handicapping yourself a little bit when you're playing with a commander that is not of one of the precons.
Yeah.
I mean,
can
it's
see
much
that
tougher.
unless you're a really experienced player and you can
Yes.
get your hands on the high value good cards type of deal.
You can grab that Azuri deck and jam a few cards into it, and it's really strong. And
Yep.
same with that Mizzix deck. So I think any of those are, but I think your answers make sense too. So a related question to that was, what's the best specific deck? Like, which deck is the best for new players?
Are we talking right now?
I think I specifically focus on this year because for the reason that
They're easy to
you
get.
can get them, right? You can actually go to like Target and buy one, whereas you're gonna have a tough time finding. Last year, like I have not seen the partner decks out
Nor have I.
anywhere at all.
And at our LGS, we have one left of the shard ones that you were talking about,
Yep.
Max.
So I think I focus on this year, and then for the same reason I was talking about things being simple, I went with the cat deck, which is Feline Ferocity, because it's 2 colors. And if you're a new player, that's easy for you to build off from.
Very true.
And I went back through and looked, like there's 2 pretty distinct build paths. You can go Arabo for cat tribal and Nazan for equipment. So whichever one of those things kind of floats your boat. Those are, not that Miri isn't decent too, but
She's a little more difficult than the other two.
right. Whereas those like have a very clear, this is what you want to do with these 2 commanders.
Yep.
And then if you want to go all in on that Arabo deck and like make it a super tight deck and throw money into it, it's not that expensive. Like it's not nothing, but the dual land for that deck, Savannah, is $75. Brushlands 10, Windswept Heath is 12, Wooded Bastion is 12. So you could put pretty close to a perfect mana base in that deck for $100-ish. That's not nothing, but like compared to a 3-color deck with blue, if you want to run dual lands, you can't. Like the average person isn't going to be able to do that.
Right.
And maybe the average person can't buy a Savannah either, but $75 for a Savannah is much more achievable than $320 for a tropical
Your
island.
car payment for the month.
Right.
Right.
And same thing with like if you look at the non-land based stuff, Arabo, what would you run? Well, Bermaz is $12-ish. Okay, so you want to put a Sylvan Library in there for 12. Greater Good is 10. A Berserk maybe to one-shot somebody with a cat that you've already used the Eminence ability and
His pump.
But even then, those are all $10 cards. Like you could make almost a perfectly tweaked Arabo deck for putting probably $200 into it.
Yep.
That's really tough to say about many other decks.
That's almost impossible for a lot
Right.
of decks.
And Nazan, roughly that, plus, you're going to have sword. If you were going to go equipment from Nazan, you probably want all 5 swords, maybe a Batter Skull or a Stoneforge. But even then, that's still much cheaper than you're going to get with most 3-color decks.
Very true.
So what do you guys think? What decks do you think is most suitable for new players?
If we went the route that you're speaking that you can get your hands on now, I would agree with you.
How about ignoring that? Just say if you went to the perfect game store that had all the precons on the shelves.
I'm going to go with Freylease.
Oh, sure. That makes sense.
Okay.
Mono green, and it's pretty much elf ball into big creatures.
Yeah.
And it's just very straightforward. All you're doing is you're playing stuff and attacking.
And for a new player, green deals with any threat.
Makes big beaters.
You can fight creatures. You make big beaters. You can deal with artifacts and enchantments.
Yep. It's
draw
the best
cards.
of all worlds, pretty much.
Yes. For a new player, mono green is the mono color you want to be playing, I think, for a new player.
Not to mention Freylease is, $15 card in herself now?
Yep.
Yeah, she's not cheap. How about you, Max? What are your thoughts?
So I'll answer both. If I'm basing it off of this year's precons, I'm going to go with the Dragon deck.
Dargans.
Because as a new player, Durgans. Like, why would you
For
not
sure.
want to have an army of dragons?
I can't argue with that. For a new player, like big beater dragons
Right.
is fun.
But if it was any precon, I'm going to go with the Azari Experience deck.
Okay.
Because it's really simple to pilot. Unlike the Eminence stuff, and this is a player fault on my own self, I forget about it when it's in the command zone. So needing to get Azuri out really makes me realize, like, hey, I have a commander that does something when he's out.
Yep.
And it's a cool way to introduce the +1/+1 mechanic to a new player and still be super simple with a bunch of small dudes that get bigger.
Now, there's a reason I bring a crap ton of dice with me, too, if new players ever got
Yeah,
something like
right.
that. It's like, here you go, here's a stack of dice you can use.
Right.
Yep. All right. The next question we had was, what's the best way for a new player to acquire cards to put in a deck?
Buy boosters!
Crack facts. I would disagree with that,
I
Max.
do-
I
I would-
don't think you're serious.
I'm not serious at all.
There's quite a few different ways, and I'm guessing it depends on a few factors for me, such as if you play other formats, like you draft and you play standard, you can go for it and buy your packs because you're already doing that anyways.
In drafting, it's just going to get you cards pretty regularly that you might want to play.
Yes. If you're playing just EDH, man, do not waste your time and money. Buy the singles.
Right, don't go hunting.
And I've been guilty of this plenty in the past where I'm at my game store and we've played for 4 hours and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go settle up for the, 2 bottles of water or soda I drank or whatever it is. And I'm like, give me a couple packs of whatever. Just because I've been there all night, I'll give them some business.
Yep.
You shouldn't do that. Don't do that. Like, if you feel that impulse to buy something from your game store, buy a land or something.
Buy a
Probably
single.
land.
Buy a
but
single.
buy a single.
And honestly, I think the game stores would prefer that you buy their singles because it helps them to move inventory because
Yep.
they have other stuff that they need to put out for people
Sure.
to see. And if they're not selling their singles, then they're just sitting on stockpiles of
And-
stuff.
And they make more money off those singles than they do off of that booster pack
Yes, they do.
you want to buy.
But there's been times, and I've done this myself, where I've bought three for $10 packs. Sometimes the stores will have or whatever it was for a month. Every week for a month, I'll buy $10. I'll buy 3 packs, and I'll crack them all and get nothing for my $40 over the course of the month. I could have bought 4 Shocklands
Yep.
for that same $40 that will last me forever. For every
Yeah.
EDH deck I'm going to build, I'll have Shocklands at the ready, or whatever, or 2 Checklands. Or if you buy 1 pack, if you just buy 1 pack a week, you can still buy a Checkland or a couple of the Pain Lands or whatever. I mean, Odyssey filters. You can probably buy 2 Odyssey filters for $3.
Oh, more than that probably, but yeah.
Not just land. Lands are an easy one because you always need lands. But like, just buy a decent single that you know you're going to use.
I gotta say, if you are set on buying packs, buy your good supplement packs, such as your Modern Masters, your Eternal Masters, stuff like that. That if you're dead set on cracking packs, you have a chance of hitting something that's gonna be highly playable or sought after
Mhm.
by other people.
Right, or something you can turn around and trade back into your LGS and get all your money back.
Have done that many times.
I've watched you do that many times.
I mean, cracking packs is fun, and if you realize you're probably losing money, that's fine. Do that if that's fun for you. But realize you're probably going to lose money. There's a pretty good shot you're losing money.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually had people. I'm not going to say this guy's name. I'm sure he doesn't listen, but somebody who I was playing with, who at one point in time I remember him being like, "Oh man, of course I'm losing. You're playing a Savannah. You've got these expensive cards in there." Savannah's like $70, and that's somebody who literally the one time he said that 2 weeks earlier, I watched him tear open a box of whatever it was. He bought a box of cons or something and opened the full box. I'm like, you spent $104 in that box of whatever it was that you had opened.
Yep.
For that, you could have bought a Savannah
And extra.
and still ordered a pizza, and bought a few Adderall from a kid out behind the school and had a good time. Like
You
for the
need
amount of
some?
money on that box, right? Yeah,
I know a guy.
We'll talk later. So yeah, like just don't buy boxes or crack packs and expect to get the same stuff. Like buy a dual land. Don't buy box. Just go buy a dual.
I think like buying duels or something might put people off because you don't see them in a lot of LGSs.
No.
You don't, and realistically, dual lands don't make that much of it, and particularly if you're playing a 2-color deck or even a 3-color deck. Maybe if you want a perfectly tuned 5-color deck, you need some duels.
Yeah.
But like, how often do you just? I mean, I guarantee in my 2-color decks that have dual lands, there are probably times I go 5 or 6 games consecutively without seeing that land.
There's many times I never see it.
Yeah.
I have to look through the deck and make sure they're still in there, and I didn't lose them.
I've done that before too. Like I'm sure there's a value in here somewhere. So yeah, but but lands are also a nice safe investment too. Like if you spend your $10 and buy your Overgrown Tomb, even if they reprint it, okay, it drops to 8, but it's always going to be worth something, and it's always going to be useful in a deck.
Well, we'll speak of Overgrown Tomb. They reprinted it and returned to Ravnica block.
Yep.
It dropped in price. It's back up to $12 card again.
Yeah, right. And if it gets reprinted again, it's still going to be
Yep.
that. I mean, the Czech lands that are in Ixalan right now are all over 5, and those have been printed, I think, 106 times when I checked last.
Jeez.
But they're all over 5 right now because they're being played in Standard.
Yep.
So yes, I think we all kind of are in agreement there.
The other one that I was thinking of is trade cards. If you have
Yes.
a collection, trade cards, whether it be online or personally for a new player, do it face-to-face with other people. You get to meet your fellow players, and you get to know them and see what they're looking for, see what you're looking for, and a lot of people can help you out.
And if you're a new player, people will give you cards if you're a nice person.
Oh, I do that all the time.
Me too.
When I get suckered down the rabbit hole of cracking packs,
Mm-hmm.
crack my packs, I'm like, oh, so much garbage. I look around the room. That's the newest player. I walk over and just hand them to them and walk away.
Sure.
Makes their night.
Yep.
Like, oh, thank you so
I think
much.
we talked about it in the very first show where we talked about the GP, but Max and I went to GP Minneapolis this year, and I wound up playing a couple of games with some like junior high kids that were really super into Commander, and they were really nice kids.
They were good.
And they were both really good players too, or 3, however many there were. And I did a little bit of trading with them, but I also wound up giving, like, one of the kids had a red-green landfall deck he was building, and I had a Valkut. I just gave him because it's a $7 card or $8 card or something, and it's not nothing, but like, why not? Give a kid and get him excited about the game. I gave somebody else. I don't remember what else I gave. The horse, Crested Sunmare. Is that what it is?
Yep, the mythic horse.
A kid had a life gain deck. I gave him a Crested Sunmare, and like, people will give you cards. It's not just, that's a lot of people that I've seen do that before.
Yeah, especially if it's not like a high value card.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done that numerous times with people too.
I've actually seen people in our LGS before where, like, there's, particularly if it's somebody who's young and who's new, who's like playing a deck, and then they're like, oh, why are you running that? And like, oh, that's all I had. I've seen people get up and go over to the counter and buy like a $2 card or something out of the,
Yep.
in back, run this instead. It's a better card. Like, I've seen people do that before.
That's the best way to do it. I mean, especially if you do stuff like that, that really keeps the new
You
players
bet.
there.
So that's
Keeps
a
them
good,
coming back.
if you
Yep.
are nice, people will do that for you. And if you do that to other people as a veteran player, that's good for the game as well.
Agreed.
But I agree. There's a lot of good trading resources online. Puka Trade, I think, is kind of dead at this point.
Yep.
That's
But
what I heard. I know on my deck box I had a guy who offered me like 30,000 Puka points, and I'm like, I think the website's dead. I don't know if I want to do this.
I just got my renewal email yesterday.
Did you?
well, I had like 28,000 Puka points left, and I just blew them all this week on a Path to Exile. 'Cause I just want him gone. I wanted to get something back for them, and I'm like, I can always use a Path of Exile. This guy is, I made a deal with a guy, and I'm like, I'll send you all my points for the Path of Exile. It's like, all right, so we made a deal. So
And
I
then
got
Puka
out.
comes back, and that guy's like, "Whoa!"
I guess, right? Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen, but
Nope.
but there's Card Sphere, which I haven't used, but I've heard Card Sphere is a decent way to do some trading, and
I've never heard of that one.
it's like a kind of a Puka trade kind of system.
A bunch of the people who started Puka Trade, and after like the downfall happened, they started this place.
Okay.
And I believe it has some kind of mechanism in place to keep inflation from happening, but I don't know what that
Yes.
is. But yeah, Deckbox is a good place to trade. And it's worth just sending singles in sometimes to places like Card Kingdom or online game retailers as well. You can sometimes get close to trade value for some cards from those places.
Yep. Speaking of that, I'm gonna give a shout out to Lodestone Games and Coffee up in Minnesota.
Okay.
They do 70% plus of card value on playable cards
Oh, nice.
for trade-in.
And
That's
it's
awesome.
just a nice place as well.
Yep. Otherwise, they do 50% usually at the minimum, even if it's bulk.
Good deal. Good to know.
Yeah.
All right. Next question we got was, what are the best online resources for Commander?
1, 2, 3.
EDH
Rec.
Rec. I actually don't use EDH Rec that much. Not that
Whatever. Don't even give me
I
that.
Really, no, I do. But like at this point, I've been playing enough. I don't need to. I just roughly know, like if I'm building this deck, I know 3/4 of the cards I'm going to
Yep.
put into it. But that's not, I don't think, usual for most people.
Don't you write for EDH
I
Rec?
well, that
So-
also is part of it, right? I like Scryfall. Scryfall is good. It kind of
Yes.
does what Gatherer does, but better.
It's
Um,
easier to navigate.
Yes. And like that was one of the first things I used when I was building a deck. The first 3 decks I built about at the same time, and it was my Edric deck, which I just knew at the time I wanted a deck with a bunch of unblockable stuff, and I found Edric, and I'm like, oh, well, what creatures do I want? So then I just go on to Scryfall or Gather or whatever it was and do a keyword search for a creature in the colors I wanted, and then the text cannot be blocked or whatever the text was off.
Yep.
I found one creature that what creatures had this text. And there was, I had, the other deck I built was a Niv Mizzet deck, and it was all creatures that tap, like Prodigal Sorcerer or Prodigal Pyromancer.
Oh, no. I played against that deck. It was so horrible.
It was. But I just did a search for that word too. However, that's worded on the Prodigal Pyromancer. I just did that, did a search for creatures and the colors and get a list of like 40 creatures that go back from the beginning of time and Magic. Because who remembers this random common from Mirage that's
True.
terrible but taps to do 1 damage like Prodigal Sorcerer does? So there's a bunch of them you find, but the only way you're going to find them is to look. If you're flipping through binders, you're never going to find some of that
No,
stuff.
no,
Because
If
most
you're-
of them are all commons and
Right,
uncommons.
yeah.
So
So Scryfall and to a lesser extent Gather are really good for those kind of things.
another one I have is Mana Base Crafter.
I love Mana Base Crafter.
Me too.
It's a good way to figure out your general. Like, you pick your colors that you like. Like, I'm a dead set red Rakdos, somewhere around in that area of player. So you pick your colors. It shows you every available commander that you can go to. Click on it, the one that you like, and then it shows you every available land in that color combination that's legal for play.
And artifacts.
And artifacts as
That's
well.
Oh, it is
new.
artifacts,
That's
too.
new.
Yep.
I've never scrolled down that far.
Yep. But it's nice because you always forget, like, what's the name of that one? What's the name of the red-black filter land from Odyssey? Well, Shadowblood Bridge. I know that. It's Shadowblood Ridge. But most people aren't going to remember that.
Right.
And even I don't remember all of them. So, like, it's good to go in and remember, oh, that's right. That's the name of this red-black land I wanted.
I've had that numerous times where I'm like trying to remember like all the shock lands. I'm
Yeah,
going
right.
through, and then there's one I can't figure out. I'm
Yep.
like, I know it's the black white. What's the name of it? What is it? And I'm like, we're just gonna search this
Yeah,
up right
yeah.
now.
And, like, but I never remember what the talismans' names are.
Or which color pairs have them.
Right. So that's good to just, when I'm building my deck, just flip down to the bottom. Oh, there it is.
Yep.
That's a good one to recommend as well. I would say use a site like Tapped Out or MTG Goldfish to put your deck on so you can visually see it.
Yep.
Maybe not everyone cares about that, but for me, being able to see your deck and like see the mana curve and see all that stuff laid out for you digitally is super, super useful.
The final one I have is Star City Games or YouTube.
Oh, I had YouTube on my list.
You did, okay. They have good articles on Magic in general, and they also have good videos. Like there's the group of guys that do the Commander
The
video.
Versus series.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting to watch because they try to limit themselves and what they do. And it's like, okay, the goal for this episode is we're going to go this route and see who wins type
Yep.
of deal.
Every deck is a mill deck. Let's see who wins first. That was
Yep.
the
See
most
who had
recent
the
one.
best one to go and all that.
The one I've liked lately is MTG Mudsta as well, and they do 4 players. It's like actually a game, and it doesn't go into like deck tech kind of stuff really, but
Okay.
it's a camera view, and you can see essentially everyone's playing as they go through, and it's sped up. And then there's a guy who's doing a voiceover saying, okay, this guy plays this guy removes that, and it's going through
Okay.
an entire game in
Yeah.
25 minutes or so.
Yeah, 25, 30 minutes.
And then afterwards, he does like a little segment where this is where this person screwed up, and this person, and here's where I missed 4 consecutive Ristic Study triggers or whatever it was. So it really feels like, hey, I've been in that game before.
Yeah. So, speaking of Star City Games, we heard from Eric Tiernan, who wrote an article for new players
For
for Star
EDH.
City Games. Yep.
Oh yeah,
So, maybe we'll try and get that link up for you guys in the show notes.
yeah,
Yep.
good deal.
Another one is other podcasts. I mean, definitely this podcast.
I think this,
but
like there are other lesser ones, but like this one for sure. Start here, and then you can listen to some other ones.
someone's patting themselves on the back really hard.
But no, for sure other podcasts.
Yeah,
There's
other-
a lot of good podcasts.
Other
out there.
podcasts. I mean, there's not a ton of EDH podcasts,
No.
but there's enough.
Yeah, there's some good ones. I like Commander Cookout, which is out of Canada.
Saskatchewan.
Saskatchewan, yeah, they do a good show. We're friends with a couple guys that do Commander Time. That's a pretty good podcast. Obviously, Command Zone is
Yep.
always good. There's always something useful on that show. Brainstorm Brewery I listen to quite a bit. It's not really Commander. There's not much Commander information there, but like if you try to kind of paying attention to card prices and stuff, that's a decent one as well. Reddit, if you can dig through.
If you can stand it.
Right.
Oh, don't even get me started. Like, I find a link for that. Like, I'll Google search something and I'll find a link and I click on it. I have to filter through 300 stupid comments before I get a good one.
The signal to noise ratio on Reddit's pretty
Yeah.
terrible, but like there can be some cool stuff there as well.
Yes.
So
Along with Reddit, other forums like MTG Salvation.
they have pretty good forums. I think that is it for kind of questions about building decks for new players, but we have some gameplay questions here too. First one is, how do you know who is the threat on the field at the time? So
I can think of a few ways.
the blue player. The blue player is the threat. Just kill the blue player when in doubt. And I'm kind of kidding, but I'm kind of not, because Cyclonic Rift is Cyclonic Rift, so just kill the blue player.
Every counter spell is every
Right.
counter spell.
Right.
The first real answer I have down, and that one is only kind of not real, but it's is, if you don't know, ask. Like the person who's the threat will probably lie to you and be like, I'm not doing anything. It's just a doubling season and
It's just tokens.
Right.
Oh, that sounds like someone I know so much.
but everyone else, like one person will lie and everyone else will like, no, it's definitely him. And you can kind of deductively reason who the threat is if you can't tell.
I mean, if you're a new player and you're playing with either your friends or a friend and a couple other people from your card shop, they should recognize that you're new and help you
you
explain game state. Like, hey, this guy just dropped that doubling season with his Phyrexian Altar and a Grave Pact. You know, we need to stop this before he just goes off.
I think I'm not usually a salty player, but I think that's one of the things that get me real salty in a game is when I give very sound, good advice
And it's
they
ignored.
they ignore it.
That's been your life story for like the last month in our
I know.
LGS.
And then afterwards, I literally pointed out to him, like, if you would have done what I said, it probably would have won you the game.
Well, that's part of Commander that doesn't exist anywhere else. Like when you're playing any other format, threat assessment isn't relative.
Yep.
Because they're just a threat. Like that's the person you're trying to kill as quickly and as brutally as possible. Whereas in Commander, you have to figure out who the scary person is. That's not something you can port in from another format.
Right.
Yeah, so basically what I have, I kind of have it as a two-step. The person with the most things in play is usually a good target to be your threat.
Not always, but yes. That's
Yep.
if when in doubt, the person with the
Yep.
most stuff is the scariest person.
The other one I have is the person who's dealing the most damage to everyone.
Okay.
Is another good threat target. Such as if I'm playing my Mogus deck, a lot of people who don't know the deck kind of ignore it, but I'm dealing more damage than anybody else to everybody at the same
No,
time.
you don't ignore Mogus. Don't ignore Rakdos Control.
Unless I draw a land every single turn, never miss a land drop, play 2 mana rocks, and my commander, and that's pretty much all I do the whole game.
Yep.
And then get hit by a morph wearing Quietus Spike.
I
Lose
know.
half
It
life.
was,
My other thing to add on to Chris's too is the person with the most cards in hand.
That was my addendum to Chris as well.
I mean, if someone just drew 20 cards and has a Reliquary Tower or a Thought Vessel, They're stacked.
Even if they may not have the most threats in the field, they are the biggest threat.
Yep.
Or if they've had a heuristic study out and everyone's been lazy and not been paying their triggers and they've just drawn 9 cards or something, even if things don't look scary, they have a card that will kill you in their hand. Like, when you draw that many, you're going to win the game.
Another one that I thought of, I'm not sure if it technically would be a good idea, but if someone's playing mono green and they go ramp card into ramp card into ramp card, they're probably going to start dropping something that you can't deal with. You might as well turn on them as soon as you can.
At some point, they're going to stop playing ramp cards and start playing 14 Hydras with trample.
Yes.
9 mana on turn 3 is perfectly acceptable. I don't know what you're talking about.
It is acceptable, but it's also not
Nothing
a good
to-
thing for anybody else.
Nothing to see here. Just ignore.
And then just play another one.
Yep.
But I do think the ask thing is worthwhile, because you get situations sometimes where you look around and you're like, okay, that guy's got a bunch of tokens out, but he's playing mono white Heliod. And that dude over there has nothing in play, but he's playing Brea and just played a Cart Clan Ironworks.
Oh, no.
But if you're a new player, you might like not understand why that is
More dangerous
But
than a bunch of dudes.
if everyone's acting like the Heliod player isn't a threat, and you're like, can someone explain to me why the Heliod player isn't a threat and that's scary? People will tell you why that's scary.
Yep.
Yes.
So
Even the
ask-
player who's playing the
yeah,
Brea will
probably,
be like,
yes.
well, this is what's going to happen.
you guys have about 8 seconds right now before bad things occur. So yeah, I think ask, and it's a combination of those two things, and you'll eventually you'll just get it. It's tough to explain, but like you'll know it when you see it. Probably. It's the Bill Clinton definition of pornography. I know. I can't define it, but I know it when I see it. The next one we got is, when do you decide to attack or stay back?
That's a hard one, I guess, for a new player. I mean, if you're playing a green stompy deck, you're just going to want to swing in and deal damage.
Okay, I can get behind that. I have it as situational.
Yeah.
It is. It's tough to give you a rule of thumb. One thing our host on our old show, Luke, used to get so infuriated with people who wouldn't attack right away
Or split their attacks.
or split their attacks.
Ugh.
And I don't get as mad as he does, but I will say this: if you play that mana dork on turn 1 and on turn 2 you just happen to not need to tap it for mana, you can swing and hit somebody for 1.
Yep.
No one's gonna remember that 3 seconds later that you hit them for 1 point of damage with your Llanowar Elves. I mean, they might like hit you back for 1 or something, or like make a joke about it, but that doesn't generate threat the way that turn 4 doubling season will, or that turn 3 Sigarda wearing Ethereal armor. So yeah, I would say if you see an opening, for the most part, take it, unless it's the kind of thing that's going to draw you heat, and you can tell what's going to draw you heat and what isn't, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I guess a good way that I have this set up is attack when you can either kill a good creature when someone blocks, won't kill your creature, you won't die if you get hit back, you have a follow-up play in your next main phase, or if you can deal them damage to gain life or draw you cards.
All good points.
Good idea to attack on those things. I say stay back if you can't do anything other than that and you're not productive otherwise.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because this is a different format again, where leaving yourself open isn't just leaving yourself open for one person; it's leaving it open for 3 people, maybe even 4 people sometimes.
And
So
some
yeah.
people might still have a rock on their shoulder from 3 weeks ago, and
You never
as soon as
know.
you open up, they're just gonna be like, blah,
Right,
nuke
yeah.
you out.
That does happen. So how do you keep good spirits when you play against experienced players who may throttle you? even just by knowing the game more, like it might not even be a deck power thing. Might just be better than you because they've played a lot, and if you're a new player, you're probably gonna lose more than you're gonna win.
Yep.
So how do you keep upbeat?
Coke.
Cocaine, definitely. I think that's what I think. We're all in agreement. Number one, drugs.
I do lines under my playmat, not on it, so the cards stay clean.
Right? No, that makes sense. I get that. Because double sleeving.
Double
Only
sleeving
does
is the thing, man.
Only does so much.
You guys keep dice in that little tray on your satin towers. I just keep my drugs in there.
So my first thing I'll say is I remember I still play League of Legends a lot. We've mentioned it here, but when I used to play a lot and watching videos and stuff, I remember listening to somebody talk about those games where your team is like, you can't surrender in League of Legends, for those that don't play it, until 20 minutes. So you have to play 20 minutes in the game.
Wow.
You can't quit until 20 minutes.
No F6 rage quit.
You could like disconnect, but if you disconnect enough times, your account gets banned.
Oh,
So
really?
you have to play the full 20-minute game.
Okay.
And there are situations where like you've lost at 10 minutes. You're just getting destroyed, and then maybe your teammates are acting like jerks and like they're flaming each other. And so what do you do for those last 10 minutes? I remember seeing somebody I think it might have even been a pro player talking about that. Like, then use that 10 minutes wisely. Like, focus on, okay, I'm going to take this 10 minutes, and since my team is falling apart and the game is useless, I'm going to practice flashing over walls, or I'm going to practice getting last hits on creatures, or I'm going to practice something. Like, use your 10 minutes productively before the game ends. And I would say the same thing if you're in a game where you're just getting rolled. How do you keep good spirits? Well, try to turn it into something positive. Okay, I'm getting rolled, but I'm going to watch how these guys determine who they're going to attack. Or I'm going to try to pay attention how this person assesses threat, or how this person, does this person have tells? Does this person always do this when they make a big swing? Like, try to use your time productively to make yourself a better player.
Yep. I would go ask questions too. Like if someone, let's say they unravel the Aether on a 6-mana enchantment that gives double strike and lifelink.
True conviction.
And the player has no clue why, you ask them why. They might not tell you right away, but ask them again after the game, because it could be part of their game plan. They don't want to give it away to the other players.
Sure.
But they'll tell you why, and then maybe that can help you in the long run.
And this is silly, but like it's true. There are studies that show that if you smile, even if you're not happy, it still makes you happy. Like, if you fake it, if you fake being in a good mood, even though you're getting killed in a game, you still kind of wind up in a good mood. Like, that's worthwhile to do if you're sitting there and you're like, man, I'm getting stomped for the 3rd straight game because I just haven't figured out yet how to determine who's the threat. Just put on a good face, and that will make it a little bit easier too. I mean, that's dumb, but like, it's really a thing that works.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of games when I play late at night at our LGS.
When you're tired and low blood sugar.
We have a few people there who are kind of troll the game a little bit.
Sure.
And I love just being like, oh, what are you doing? Just start hollering, but we're having a good time playing.
Yes.
And that's what I think EDH is. It was meant to be a casual, fun format where you could play all the cards that you own and not have to worry about, people hating on you.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. I also think it has to do with who you play with. I mean, if you're a new player, you're going to be playing with more experienced players.
Yes.
And if you aren't having a good time with, if let's say you always play with the same 3 players and one of them is super cutthroat and one of them is mediocre and one of them just doesn't really care, they just have been playing forever, play with new people.
Yeah.
Get rid of that cutthroat guy and see if 3 new people help you learn better or have a better attitude overall than just, I have to win, I have to win, I have to win.
I think this could be a tip for experienced players and players who've been playing for a long time.
Yeah.
If you're seeing more new players coming in, spend the $100, build yourself some cheap deck that you can play with the new players so you don't make them, become sour to the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Very detuned deck. And if they ask you, well, what's your better deck? You pull it out and show them once, and they're probably never going to want to play that deck again, and they're going to expect you to pull out the weak deck next time.
What I've also done in the past is I've had a new player say, hey, that Dromoka deck you have is really cool. Can I play it? Yeah, no problem. I'll let you play my deck. But I also then say, do you mind if I help you pilot it?
Yes.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So then they're drawing the cards, they're holding the hand, but then at any time they can turn to me like, should I do this or this? And what do you think? And then I'll say, yeah, you should. This is what I would do.
Yep.
But you don't have to. That's just what I would do. It helps them kind of learn how you think, how you judge threat and board states, while learning to use a more experienced deck versus that pre-con they just bought a week ago.
And I think this was worth mentioning, talking about playing with new players. It's easy to say, but like, some people are like, well, all I have is my roommate and this other guy to play with, and they're both jerks or whatever. If you have a local game store in town that doesn't have a commander night, just show up with like one friend or something, because that's how, like, we get like 20 to 25 people, if not more, some nights at commander night. But there was no commander nights at any of the stores in this
6
town
years ago.
5 or 6 years ago. My friend Frank and I, Frank listened to this podcast, who is a coworker of mine, both were like playing commander just against each other. And we said, let's just go to this game store on Tuesday night. I think it was Wednesday night at first. But we just started showing up. Maybe it was Tuesday.
I think it was Tuesday.
We started showing up. We showed up and told the guy, we're just going to be here playing commander. So he's like, all right, well, I don't care. And then after like 3 weeks, he posted on his Facebook page.
And then I walked in the door.
And then Max walked in. And then like a week later, Chris was there about the same time too.
Yep, I was playing a different format, and I was like, what are you guys doing? And he explained it to me, and I'm like, this seems awesome. Let's do this.
Why do you have so many cards?
and like literally, I've been playing with you guys 3 out of 4 weeks, if not more, for the last 5 or 6 years since then. Since literally since then. Like you guys were like the first couple people I played with, and we've been playing together ever since then.
Yeah, I know. It's a huge turnout now too.
And now you're right. It's like a legit commander night. I mean, I come in at 5 o'clock and there's already a dozen people playing, and by 8 there's almost consistently 20 to 25 people in there playing commander.
And when you get that tight play group, whether it's with your friends or other people from your LGS, that builds credibility. So like we've had the situations happen where we have to move game stores for whatever reason. And when we first moved from that original game store to the second game store, because we're on game store number 3 now.
Yes.
We walked in and said, hey, we typically play Commander on Tuesday nights. Would you mind making that the designated Commander night?
Yep.
Because we can guarantee you 8 to 10 people. I mean, that's what happened the first time.
Yep.
And they're like, yeah, no problem. We'll set some tables aside for you. And then now on to game store number 3, it's like, hey, we can guarantee you 20 people every Tuesday night. And, this LGS owner worked previously at the game store number 2 for a short time, so he knew about this. But he even said to me
I'll stay open till midnight. I'll do this for you guys. I mean, don't do that.
Yeah. He also said to me, I didn't expect it. People say, yeah, I'll guarantee you X amount of people, but you don't believe it till you see it when on a Tuesday night, your store's packed with Commander players.
At 11 o'clock at night.
Right.
Still. Yeah. So yeah, that's a little bit more advanced for new players, but I guess we were new players when we did that. So
yes,
that's
we
not
were.
that advanced. We were all new.
Right.
All right. Question number 4 we got about gameplay. How often do you commit to the board?
Can we define that?
So my answer, and this might not be what you guys answered, I read it to mean how often do you make your game-winning move? When do you do that? How do you know to make your move to either surge ahead or try to kill somebody, or when do you make the move? It's tough to say, I can't say when there's this much life and this many creatures, but I would rather make a move and have it whiff than be too conservative. I always think of when my dad was teaching me how to golf. I remember when he was showing me how to putt and stuff when I was a kid, him saying, if the hole's 10 feet away, hit it long and go 11 feet rather than hit it 9 feet, because
then it rolls back at you.
Well, but if the hole's 10 feet away and you hit 11, it might go in. If it's not, if it's 10 feet away and you hit it 9, it's never gonna. It's never gonna go in. So take your chances versus be more aggressive than not.
Okay.
That's the only thing I can really think to say. That was my assumption what the question meant. What did you guys take away from the question?
my assumption of the question is how do you make sure you don't overcommit to the board state itself? So I have 6 of the 7 cards in my hand. I can play this turn. Do I play them all, knowing that I don't have haste or whatever, and risk a board wipe or risk something, or do I play conservatively and only play 1 or 2 cards?
Yep, that's how I took it. This actually came from a friend of mine, this question. He was playing my Ural deck and didn't know how many enchantments he should play in one turn.
Okay.
Should he commit hard into it, because we kept wrathing the board at certain points and stuff like that. So my tips to it is I usually try to limit it to 1 thing per turn. Like 1 permanent, a creature, an enchantment, whatever.
Until you're ready to go.
Unless you have a card draw engine set up. Then you can jam all you want because you just keep refilling your hand to keep going again.
Mm-hmm.
I think that makes sense. I would say I also tend to avoid being the first person with a strong board position, because that first person that establishes themselves as the threat gets hit by everyone. And everyone
that totally reminds me of last night when I was playing Ural and I just started suiting up Saram and smacking you guys, and then Dargans decided to go smush into me.
I watched that game. That was not fun to watch.
I was legitimately I had mana problems that game, so I wasn't sandbagging, but I often sandbag. That wasn't a game where I was doing it, but I regularly intentionally hold back early on.
Yep.
Just to not be the first person that eats that first wrath, because if everyone's running 3 wraths and you draw your 10 cards deep by turn 3, so you've seen 10% of your deck, there's a pretty decent chance one of the 4 players has drawn a wrath, if not more than that. So if you're that first person who's just creature, you're just going to eat that first wrath of God and have an empty grip while everyone else is still loaded up.
Yeah.
Yep. Not always. That Sigarda game, clearly I had no problems there. But there are situations where you're just going to wind up hellbent because you blew your water away, and that is what it is.
I think something else that goes along these lines is learning how to bait removal. So if you're holding,
I love doing that.
If you're holding a Sylvan Library and a Mirari's Wake and you have enough mana to play both of them, which which would you rather see get counterspelled or unraveled? In my opinion, I'd drop the Sylvan Library,
And
let it eat the counterspell or the removal, and then drop Mirari's
the
Wake.
other way around.
Really?
Because I'd rather
You
have
want the draw.
card advantage to.
It probably depends on your hand, but I would more often than not probably want Mari's Wake.
Right.
But
I'm not playing that unless I have my path to victory ready to go.
sure.
Yeah, that could be. I do have this listed in kind of an order of how I look at things for overextending. So if you're going to play something, the way that I look at it is, does it impact the field?
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't at the time, it's probably not worth it to play it. Does it draw you a card? If so, totally worth it because it replaces itself in your hand. Will it affect you bad if everything is destroyed? So do I go and I drop my 30 slivers out of my hand? Now, is this going to hurt me if the wrath goes off? And then the last thing is, will it make you a threat? And if so, can you protect yourself?
Okay.
That's the way I
Wow.
look at it for how often do you commit to
Sure.
the board.
That makes sense. One of the things I try to look at a little bit is there some threat out there that one of the other players are going to want to remove, and then don't put a bigger threat into play. So, for
Okay.
example, if there's a Mari's Wake in play, and you're like, okay, someone's going to destroy that if they have a removal spell in hand because no one wants to deal with that person's double mana. Don't play your doubling season in your token deck then that turn, because then you've just saved that Mari's Wake because you're going to eat that removal spell under your
Yeah,
doubling
'cause
season.
I would rather see someone have double mana than double tokens. hit the
Yes,
field
particularly if
already.
it's a dedicated token deck.
Yep.
So don't, if there's a bigger threat out there, let that threat eat the removal spell before you play your thing. Because even as someone holding the removal spell, I had that so often. I'm like, okay, I need to deal with that Mari's Wake, and then the person goes, doubling season. I'm like, you just saved the Mari's Wake, so all you did. Like, I'll kill your doubling season. I guess I'm glad you did that because I didn't want to have to use my one removal spell and have the doubling season out. But why would you shouldn't play that unless you definitely have a way to win the game, because
Yes.
that's you've just changed the bullseye over to yourself. And I think the last gameplay question we had was, do you take advice from other players?
I think it goes back to what I said earlier, is if they know you're new, if they're kind-hearted souls and nice people,
Which most people are,
Right.
generally.
they're going to give you decent advice.
I will say that I have seen one or two people who have offered advice from a dishonest point of view, like, oh, no, you shouldn't run that card, when I know the reason they're saying that is because it screws their deck over.
Yep.
Mhm.
But that's rare. I would assume the opposite more often than not.
I go into it as a yes and no question. If they're pushing too hard to get their point across, or
There's a
pushing-
reason.
There's a reason.
Sure.
It's probably not going to be a benefit to you. Now, I would listen to what they have to say, and then ask them why. And if they
Sure.
give you a good explanation and you feel it's genuine, go for it.
Mhm.
And if you're playing with me, of course you listen. That's just point taken right there.
Unless they listen to me, and then it's perfect.
Well, for anyone who ever plays with us, I do have multiple experiences of you either listen to me or you listen to Max. If you listen to me, you win the game. If you listen to Max, you lose to Max.
I am the champion. Political champion.
Well, we have one guy that we play with. Adam is his name, and I know Adam listens. But I'll mention Adam in specific here because Adam's relatively new to Commander.
Yep.
6 months ish or so. But Adam regularly asks me questions. I know he asks you about Modern now too,
Yep.
Chris. But Adam always has really good questions, and he always wants your feedback on something. And then almost always, if you give him a good answer, he almost always listens and implements it.
Yeah.
So like he's a good example of somebody who I know he always has good questions and wants to know why this happened and what he should change in his deck. And so what do you think about this card? What do you think about this card? So he's somebody who's always very good at asking questions, and I'm always looking to help Adam because I like the way his brain works with those kind of things.
I think I'm going to blame Adam for my loss in the top 8 this weekend in the Modern, because him and Frank showed up and they started chatting my ear off as I'm playing my game in the top 8, and I'm just like, oh no, go away.
Don't do that, people. That's just wait till the round's over or in between games. Leave them alone.
Yeah.
Were you playing Burn?
Yes.
So at least that you can autopilot that. That's just Burn.
Mm.
No, I'm kidding.
Not against Death Shadow.
Yeah, not against Death Shadow.
is that what it was against?
You got to really think
Ooh.
your play is out.
I suppose. Yeah, that adds a
you're
whole
helping
new
them.
element there.
Yep, you're helping them, and to a point, once they get down to about 5 life, it's either kill or be killed.
Yep.
It's literally, that's where you're at.
One specific Twitter question we had, because we asked anyone who had any questions, and we got some feedback. One question was from at Austin M. Kreider. He said, how about, and this is kind of more of an advice than a question.
Okay.
The best way to play a variety of commanders in different colors without breaking the bank is you could build an Esper Good Stuff deck that if you want, you could then split it into a Dimir deck or an Azorius deck or an Orzhov deck.
Okay, I could get behind that.
I like the idea conceptually.
I don't know if it seems like a lot of messing around with like, okay, what cards I want to take out for this deck.
Right. Or what cards do you have to take
Right.
out?
But I would say the extension of that, and kind of as a combination with me talking about buying lands before, is you can get to a certain point when once you've picked up enough of these staples that you just have most of the parts of your deck. There are some, your land base is always going to kind of be the same. So once you have that Orzhov deck together, or that
Esper
deck together, that's pretty much your land base for when you go build the Azorius deck or build the. So if you take a deck apart and just put your cards in storage, you can just build a new one. Like when I build a new deck, for the most part now, I've got the land sitting there because I've built a deck previously and taken one apart.
Well, I would say that to new players too, is don't be in a rush to get the cards.
Yes.
Take your time. I mean, like, for all of us, we didn't build these decks that we have overnight.
Years. It took years for a lot of these decks we built.
Right.
Yep, so don't rush into it. So speaking of the guy who just gave us that advice, guy who I play with religiously, Nate, at our LGS, he plays strictly blue or white.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he does.
And literally his box is all blue or white playables that could be played in his commander decks. And that's all he has, all in the same exact sleeve, so he just goes in, out, quick and easy. So if there is a color combination you like, stick with it. Pick up the cards that you need for it, and you can always swap it in between decks.
Or even if you don't have a color combination you like, I actually have a box of EDH cards as well. There's maybe 300 cards in it, but it's like, okay, that Path to Exile I'm going to get off of Puka Trade, I'm just going to put that in the white section of that because at some point I'll build some deck running white and I will want a Path to Exile.
Yep.
And there's a Swords of the Plowshares in there in the white, and there's a Brainstorm in blue, and there's a Hero's Downfall in the black section, and there's a section on lands, and there's a Beast Within in green because they're cards that I'm probably going to put in the deck of the appropriate color. So I just have this box of those staples there. Now it's maybe tougher with Path to Exile because it's a $10 card, but like Swords of Plowshares is $1.
Vandal Blast,
right? Like you're probably going to be running that in most of your red decks, or at least considering it.
I think I only have one Vandal Blast, to be honest with you.
I'm the same way. I think it's in a deck and I have to take it out for another deck.
Which is insane considering how many Return to Ravnica packs I probably cracked, but...
And it's not an expensive card. And
it isn't.
It's just one of those cards you're just like, you don't even think about until you go to build, and you're like, I should
Vandal
get
Blast.
some more of these.
So the closeout question here today is going to be, what piece of advice do you most wish you had been given as a new Commander player, or just advice that you would like to give specifically to newer Commander players?
I wish that people would have given me advice that I don't trust Max when he has a pact not to kill you.
Because he'll lie.
I am being painted as the bad guy today.
I'm sorry.
That was like 4 years ago.
That was card shop number 1.
I'll never forget that. Yeah, I won't attack you. You go that way. Okay. Oh, here comes Tajik in your back.
32 command damage. Dead.
No, I guess advice that I wish I would have gotten, and advice I'm going to give to other people is just try to have fun with the game. You're not going to win them all, so don't take the losses so hard.
Yeah. Max, what do you got?
I wish someone would have given me the advice of stick it out with a deck. Like, you build a deck, and you play it, and you're probably playing against more experienced players with tuned decks, and it just isn't working. Don't give up. Take a look at it. Ask them to take a look at it. See if you really like that commander and it just isn't working, well, it's probably something in the 99, not the commander. In most cases. Take the time and really study your deck. Back when I started, EDH Rec didn't exist. It was like MTG Salvation and Gatherer. Now we have Scryfall and deck primers and EDH Rec. So there's way more tools than there were 6 years ago, but just giving the advice of stick it out, keep tuning it. Don't drop that deck after 2 weeks to build something else. Give it the love it deserves before you cut ties with it.
Yep. I guess a tip I would give along with that is, I know Dana does this and I do it as well. Keep a deck list of what you had. So if you do rip it apart, you can always come back to it.
Yes. I also like to kind of log the changes I make.
Oh
And
God.
that's probably a little bit, that's probably a little bit too much for
I've
some
totally
people.
seen your sheet of all your changes too.
But I do like to, like, number one, it's just I like to do it. But number two, like, it's useful to look back and be like, why did I pull this out again? And look back, oh, I pulled it for this. Okay, that kind of makes sense. Or why did
Yep.
was I ever running this card? Oh yeah, I was. So I kind of like to do that. That's probably
OCD.
not something for most people, but I do it.
Oh.
My one piece of advice I would say is don't trade away your lands. And I remember when I was first playing, talking Return to Ravnica, and I was playing Commander, I had like my 3 decks, so I would go to a draft and do something or whatever, and like, oh, now I've got a Godless Shrine, and I'm not running an Orzhov deck, so who cares? Oh, someone online is going to offer me these 14 cards I kind of want for my Godless Shrine. Sure, why not? Don't do that. Like, granted, the lands in Standard right now aren't shock lands, but
Yes.
there's still things you're probably gonna like. Check lands are really good in EDH.
Yep.
You're gonna, even if you don't want it right now, if you're gonna play Commander, you're gonna want it at some point. So I mean, maybe if the lands are super overpriced for the moment, it's worth trading away, and like you'll get them later on for $2.
Fetid pools, which are like a $10 card.
Right. I remember the Theros temples.
Oh,
at one
geez.
point in time, were going for like $8 or $10, and now they're $1-ish.
All under $1. Yeah.
So if you could have gotten rid of them at $10, then definitely do that. But
Yep.
But some lands, you just they're never going to go much below what they're at. So don't hold on to them because you're going to want them.
At least
some point in
hold
time.
one copy of each one
Yes.
that you have,
Yep.
so you have it for a deck.
I try to do 1 to 2 of every shock.
I try to
And-
do play
yeah.
sets. I'm a little greedy, but
But you also play Modern, where you might
Yep.
want them in Modern as well. All right, I think that is it. New players. Hopefully that was helpful. Actually, it was fun to talk about.
it was very fun.
Yeah,
to talk about.
awesome show.
All right, thank you very much. We'll be back next week. I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.